Do you feel that?
Yes.
Are you willing to believe it?
Yes.
Does it make you feel like you're puffing yourself up maybe to do that? No? A little? Yeah, yeah, yeah. So it's our separated self that puffs itself up. But the aspect of ourselves, the only reality of who we are, that aspect, that oneness in consciousness, in heart and mind with God, God consciousness, can't puff itself up. It already is all that and more. It just is. It's attributed to Marianne Williamson, but it comes from A Course in Miracles. Who are you not to be fabulous? Who are you not to be magnificent? Who are you not to be unstoppable? I would suggest that getting this little piece right here, which requires that we identify ourselves with God as source. That this little piece right here, God first, main thing, the only relationship of value is my relationship with God, the source of my being, that God is the source of everything. And because of that, we can overcome the crucifixions of our lives when we say, it's finished. The drama of the ego, man, it is finished. And into thine hands I commend my spirit. I lose nothing and I gain everything. But most of all, I gain my divine identity, which is the second coming. Easter was last Sunday. Now what? Now the second coming. And it's right here, right now. Jesus is saying, what have y'all been waiting for? You now have me properly identified as way shower. Follow the way. Follow the way. One of the greatest things I got from Unity that I didn't say earlier is that Jesus came off the pedestal for me. Jesus was much more effective in my evolution of consciousness when we walked side by side. Jesus as a teacher was much more effective for me when I understood that we came from the same source. Much more effective for me when it was a brother, a sibling. An example and not an exception, which gave me hope. And the hope and the hopefulness is that I get to walk this way now. And so do we together. Walk this way was the theme of my Camino. And in my Camino, I had a playlist. And one of the songs that we've played here is not Walk This Way, which is Aerosmith. And I always get hung up on that, don't I? Which is a good one. The problem with that song is the only part that's good is walk this way, walk this way. But a closer walk with thee, the old hymn. A closer walk with thee. That was the purpose, the dedication of my Camino walk. And on the eve of taking the first step of the 500 miles, I was in St. John, Pied de Port, which was on the French side of the Pyrenees mountains that I had to cross over, that I really got to cross over. and I stayed there for a couple of days preparing to take the first step. And there is a church, right? It's a walled city, and there's a church, and right outside of the church is the gate that you walk through, and there's a bridge, and that's your first step on the Camino. And inside that church, the day before I left, I went into the church, and there was on one side a beautiful, attractive energy. And I went on that side of the church, and there was an altar to Mary, an altar to Mother Mary. And it was bright, and there were flowers, fresh flowers, beautiful, and very tall pillar candles lit. There was a warmth to the light. And I remember sitting there, and there were some things that were troubling me about my trip. Well, primarily, I packed way too much, and I knew it. And so how was I going to get rid of my stuff, right? And you know, an old former Catholic girl sitting in front of Mother Mary, I started chatting with her. and you know, there was a communication, there was a request to help me with the problem I was having. And I left there, walked out the door, and immediately was assisted on where I could lighten my load and release some of my belongings so that I could make this trip. And it was just synchronistic, so beautiful. I was so grateful. And then that night, I slept. And as I prepared to leave to take the actual first step, I went back into the church, and I noticed that there was another altar. It was darker. There were no flowers. There were no candles. And when I sat over there, it was Jesus on a crucifix. And I remember thinking how sad I felt that it was dark, that he was still on the crucifix. Like there was something inside me that just wanted to take him off that crucifix. And that I felt that the law of attraction, just by virtue of the different energies of the two altars, was very different. One seemed dedicated to love and light and beauty, and one to death. And I remember, even though my purpose was a closer walk with thee, which meant my highest self. It could have meant Jesus, it could have meant God. And at various times it meant those things. But it's really a closer walk with the divine identity of who I am. And that sitting there in the back of my mind, I thought, but there's a part of me that wants my ministry to be about taking him off that cross. To shift our focus from suffering, from blood, from sacrifice, to a rising in love, a rising in consciousness, a releasing of that dynamic so that we can be set free, so he can be set free. Does that make any sense? Yeah. Does it? Okay, yeah, okay. So that's how I went off and walked. And I shared last week that the dedication of my ministry is to walk the resurrected, ascended life. And what I said to you last week was that the only requirement to do that was to begin to shift and dedicate ourselves to the thought system of love. And the question becomes, how can I be love? How can I extend love? How can I serve love? And that becomes the shift in our practice. I also said that I'm not saying we're not going to have crucifixion experiences, but all they are, if we can understand them properly, is we're in our own mind, we're believing something that is not true about ourselves. Those are the crucifixion experiences. Now, we know that they manifest as the circumstances of our lives that we attract to ourselves. But if our focus is on lack, we tend to experience and reflect that in our lives. And if our religion is about death and suffering, guess what? We're going to attract that into our lives. And guess what? If we are attracting that in our lives, it makes us dependent upon a religion or a source that says you do these things and you can be set free. And that worked for a while for me. But there came a time when that did not work anymore. And one of the things I loved about unity is that it placed God within me and you. And one of the things I loved about unity was that it said I didn't need an intermediary in order to be connected with that which I'm already connected with. And so what I'm calling upon us to do is to release the habit of letting our egos, letting the aspect of ourself that believes in lack and limitation and death and sacrifice as being necessary for salvation. I'm just asking us to let that aspect of ourselves take the back seat for a while and shift our focus upon love and loving thoughts and the best loving thoughts that we can have in each and every moment. You see, Jesus' story and what has been exemplified to us is our journey and evolution of consciousness. The old religiosity was perfect at its time in our human evolution. But we've evolved since then. We've evolved outside of a victim-level consciousness that believes that things are happening to us, that life is happening to us. And what Jesus showed us is that we can rise and remember our divine identity, and that God is our source, and that love is what we're here to be and do. Love our brothers and sisters as I have loved you. And that we can begin to shift our focus. A resurrected, ascended lifestyle is a whole lot easier, just gotta say. It's a whole lot easier for us. I'm not saying life sometimes doesn't present challenges. Yes, crucifixions tend to precede resurrections. But if we can begin to default to the mind of God first, we save a lot of time. We just save a lot of time. And so like this idea that what does this mean for our practice? What it means is that we shift, like Jesus did, from the perception or being perceived as a victim of the politic of the day and the dramas of the day to a victor, that he walked into his masterfulness, his mastery, and created a demonstration that may have been misconstrued, but still showed us the way to rise. Still showed us the way to rise above the conditions of the world by letting it go, saying, "It's finished, and into thine hands I commend my spirit." Meaning, I offer all my thoughts, everything to God consciousness, to the altar, to be transmuted and transformed. It means that we move from a complexity of practices and symbolism to a simplicity. This is a very simple part of our teaching. Very simple. So how can I explain this shift? It's from working a practice. I'm going to work my prayers. I'm going to work my affirmations. I'm going to work my denials. And we have to do that because this noggin of ours can be a little thick. And we can be a little stubborn and a little attached to our little ways, right? And so we practice and we repeat. And there's a redundancy in our affirmations and in our prayers. And we do that to break down the holds that the ego has upon us. But there is a tipping point, and we can activate that tipping point by choosing the mind of love first and letting that lead. That's when we walk out of that tomb as the risen Christ. People aren't always going to recognize us. They're going to be, What you mean you're not arguing and fighting with me? What do you mean you love me? What do you mean you accept me just the way I am? We stop resisting where everybody else is at, and we just go within our own. Keep us clean and clear, connected with Spirit first. There's a simplicity in this practice. So we work the practice until it gives way to a grace. And we practice, but we begin to release the details of the practice. On Maundy Thursday, I raised this idea of somebody who accomplished this. And it was a 17th century friar, monk. And his name is Brother Lawrence. And he is remembered for a book that is entitled Practicing the Presence. And what he said is that he discovered the secret to living heaven on earth. That's when we all lean in. What might that be? What is the secret? It's not the book that you're thinking or the video. It is this. He says that I learned to just simply practice the presence of God in everything, and that I would talk continuously and lovingly to God always, all the time, without any rules, without any systems. Without any rules, without any systems. I abandoned all particular forms of devotion, all particular prayer techniques. My only prayer practice was attention. Where is my attention? Right now. Right now. Where is my attention? I carry on a habitual, silent, and secret conversation with God that fills me with overwhelming joy. He lived life as if only he and God existed, which is really to say, living life as only God exists, which said another way, living life as only love exists. He said, it is not necessary to have great things to do. I turn my little omelet in the pan for the love of God. We practice the presence. Between last week and this week, what's the difference? To the outer world, we're still chopping wood, carrying water. Before enlightenment, what do? We chop wood, we carry water. After enlightenment, what does it look like to the world? We chop wood and we carry water. The only thing that shifts and changes is us. Where we place our attention. Simple. Simplicity. Love or fear. It's truly that simple. So, I got this whole get up here, right? We're going to do Holy Communion. And I had heard that there were people who felt a little uncomfortable with that, and I just want to acknowledge that. I was raised Catholic. But we aren't the only ones who broke bread together and had a practice of doing, something in the outer world to symbolize an inner devotion. And that's what we're doing here today. When I started to walk out on that Camino, this little Catholic girl, or I guess I'm not little, but this Catholic girl got to heal some of the woundedness of the religion in which she was raised. what I have come to learn is that when I feel a reaction within me about anything, including religions, when I feel that reaction within me, it's ever only an indication, a loving nudge for me to heal something within myself. And so, it's kind of funny. Well, what was I thinking? This is a Catholic pilgrimage, right? And so there are every 7 to 10 to 15 miles, there are little towns with churches. And they have pilgrim masses every day for the pilgrims. I went to those all across Spain. And I got the opportunity to really personalize and remember a higher truth of this practice for myself. You see, anybody suffering from any religious woundedness, we have the opportunity to reclaim the nuggets of truth that might have been used in ways that it ought not to have been. For manipulation, for control. I mean, it's all just humans. It's all just reflecting a human evolution. But we have the ability to heal that within ourselves, and I got that opportunity to do that. And the first time this really came to me was healing this idea, because every time as a Catholic girl I would take communion, the practice was to utter these words: Lord, I am not worthy to receive you. Now I understand they have changed that, but I was a little girl that said, Lord, I am not worthy. At least twice a week, because I went to Catholic school. And, so during the week and on Sundays, I uttered those words. And there are things that we must do in that faith in order to be worthy to receive. But I'm saying, in every holy instant, we are worthy to receive the sustenance and the life energy of our Creator. And we get to choose to do that. And so that is one of the healings for me. At one point in my life, being a minister, people transition in my personal life too. I'm present for community when there are transitions, and I facilitate and conduct memorial services. But when it's somebody really close to you, and this is what happened to me, when my mother passed away, I was asked to do the service, and I had to check in with myself. Can I do this? Because my mother and I were very close. I loved her so much. I still love her. She's present right now, right? In consciousness. And so I remember as I was contemplating this, something dropped in. It was this: do this in memory of me, which is what is uttered in a Catholic Mass. When one approaches communion, it's the idea that we do this practice in memory of me. And I was hearing my mother say, do this in memory of me. I'm like, do what in memory of you? And what I got was, love what I have loved in life. Celebrate what I have loved in life. And when you do that, when you love the people I love in my life, or the things I loved in my life, and you do it in memory of me, there I am with you. And so the message to my family and to the people at her memorial service was into my sisters. What do we do? What did she love? She loved us. So we love one another in memory of her. We love each other as sisters in memory of her. And for me, it was also loving the things that she loved. She loved the sky. Every time I go out and look at the new sky here, I always do this, and I look at the sky. And because that was a practice she did, I could see the beauty in all the different skyscapes wherever I live. And I connect with her in that moment. When I was walking the Camino, I would remember her every time I saw the corn. You know, we went through a lot of agricultural areas. Every time I saw the corn waving in the wind, I would think of my mother. And I would sing. I'm going to sing. I would sing because she loved theater and she could sing. She'd say, "The corn is as high as an elephant's eye, and it's going way up to the sky. Oh, what a beautiful morning. Oh, what a beautiful day." Like, that was my mother, except she could sing on key. And she would have a joyfulness upon her face when she sang that. And so I imagine Jesus at the Last Supper saying, "Do this in memory of me. Love what I have loved." What I get that he loved was his creator. Father, and I had mother. Father, mother, because he certainly loved his mother. Father, mother, creator. Every time a miracle was attributed to him preceding that, he would pause like we pause, and he would connect with Papa, Abba. Connect with Source. Love the Lord your God with all your heart. Love, love. Do this in memory of me. And the command to love our brothers and sisters as we have loved ourselves. Gotta love yourselves, man. I mean, it's mathematical, those words. Love God, love what I have loved, and love yourself. You're not full of yourself when we do that. And so the idea of communion then became an outer demonstration of an inner commitment that God comes first in my life. Love comes first. It is the source and the sustenance of my being. And when I partake, when I consume of that, it gets broken down by the body and extends out and nourishes the entire body. God first. When I place that first, God first, this consciousness first, it is something that I'm in love with, that it's the only relationship that matters in my life. Because from it, all other relationships come. From it, life is charmed. From it, purpose is clear. From it, resources are attracted to you. From it, harmony happens. From that consciousness, and only that consciousness, can I count on day in and day out. So I partake of this. It becomes a part of me, a part of who I am. And the wine becomes the elixir of life of the Father, Mother present, saying, "Beloved, don't cut yourself off from me. I am the life force and energy, and I communicate to you, with you, through love, through desire. Follow that lifeline, and it will carry you right to me, face to face. As Paul said, I once saw through a glass darkly, but now I see face to face. That's what this practice means to me today. And so our meditation is actually going to be the communion that you partake of. And I invite us as a community, once we have this experience here, that throughout our week, we pause. Where is my attention? Is love leading? God is my source. And that we, every time we break bread, we think of this. I'm going to invite us to do grace before we eat. This whole week, every meal. Just explore it as a practice, as a touchstone. It's silent, sacred. I'm connecting with the source, the sustenance of all that is, and I'm following love, the elixir of life. When we do this as our practice, moment by moment, we discover the secret of heaven on earth. When we do this as our practice, moment by moment, we experience a peace and a joy. We're present. We're just present. This practice is as sacred as you wish it to be. You may participate or not during this period, though. We're holding space for those who are participating. And make no mistake, it's a family affair. This isn't an alone, isolated thing. We break bread and do this in memory of God as source, loving, and allowing love to flow through us. As we walk up here, we partake of the bread. There are tongs for the bread. There are grapes representing the wine. There's a chalice that represents if we were to be drinking wine. And you could break the bread off of this one. I also think there's gluten-free bread over here. Doesn't look as good to me, but I think this is the non-gluten-free. And so I'm just going to invite us to pause, turn within, let us have some music. The ushers will help guide, but we partake in a way that feels right for us. It's a self-serve proposition. No intermediary. You and God. You in spirit. You in love.